Hello, I'm Brian Farrell, and welcome to PACE IT's session on the basics of network cable connections. Today we're going to be talking about fiber optic network connections. We're going to be talking about coax network connections, and we're going to conclude on twisted pair network connections. I have a whole bunch of information to cover, so let's dive right in. So let's start with fiber optic network connections. The fiber optic cables themselves are composed of one or more strands, fibers, of high-quality glass or plastic. The strands are coated with a sheath, that's called cladding, that aids in the transmission of a light signal down the fiber. There are three common types of network connections for fiber optics. There's the SC connector, the square connector, or subscriber connector. There is the ST connector, the straight tip. And then there is the LC, which is also known as the lucent or little connector. Now, when fiber optics are used in networking, each network connection is actually a pair of fiber optic cables. One cable is used to receive network traffic, and the other cable is used to transmit network traffic. This allows for duplex communication. Now let's move on to coax network connections. A coax cable is composed of a central conductor that is covered with an insulating layer that is covered with a metal mesh or foil sheath, which is finally covered by an insulating layer. The ends of a coax network cable are required to be terminated with a resistor to eliminate signal bounce. In today's networking environment, about the only connector you'll come across is the F connector. It's a simple, rugged connector, and they're used with RG6 or RG59 coaxial cable. Less common, but you may still find it, is the BNC, the bayonet Neil-Councilman connector, or bayonet nut connector. This is an older technology, like I said, and it really isn't used in the modern network, at least hopefully not in your network. So let's move on to twisted pair wire network connections. Now, twisted pair wire is the most common of all networking cables. The cable is composed of 8 wires that are twisted together into pairs. The rate of twist in each pair is slightly different to reduce the chances of interference, called crosstalk, from the adjoining pairs. It also reduces the opportunity for electromagnetic interference, EMI. Now, there may or may not be a shield around each pair of wires and/or a shield around all 4 pairs of wires. Well, that's true. All 4 pairs of wires are housed in a common sheath. Now let's talk about the common twisted pair network connections. First up is the RJ45, the registered Jack 45. This is the network connector that most people think about when they think about Ethernet networking. It's a modular network connector that contains 8 pins and will accept 8 conductors wires. An RJ45 can also be called a modular 8P8C connector. That's 8 pin, 8 conductor connector. The other common twisted pair network connector is the RJ11, the registered Jack 11. Like I said, this is also a common network connector, but most people don't think of it that way because it's used for telephones. It is a modular network connector that contains 6 pins and 4 wires. It is a modular 6P4C connector. So let's talk about the twisted pair wiring standards. There are 2 twisted wire cable pinout standards, that's wiring standards, that are regulated by the TIA-EIA, that's the Telecommunications Industry Association Electronics Industry Alliance. The pinout standards specify the ordering of the wires to ensure that proper networking communication can take place. The 2 standards are the TIA-EIA 568A, that's the T568A standard, and the TIA-EIA 568B or T568B standard. And you can see that the pinouts are slightly different. When you're working with twisted pair cable, there are some common tools that you should have. First up is the wire stripper. These are used to remove the insulating jacket from the twisted pair cable. Then there's the crimping tool. These are used to secure the wires into the modular connector, into the RJ45 or the RJ11. You should also have a punch down tool. Now these are used to secure the wires into a punch down block, which is a fairly common component in the modern local area network. And finally, you should have a cable tester. These are used to test the integrity of the network cable to make sure that it's good. Now that concludes this session on the basics of network cable connections. We talked about fiber optic network connections. We briefly talked about coax network connections, and we ended on the twisted pair wire network connections that are available to you. Now, on behalf of PACE IT, thank you for watching this session, and I look forward to doing another one.